Steve.
You talked at one time about prohibiting sales of gasoline to ATV. Anything ever come of that?
We did have our solicitor look into, and like anything, he reached out to solicitors across the country, and it's not that easy for a city to either pass an ordinance to restrict that, but it's a strategy that we continue to pursue. Look, they need to gas up, and those gas station attendants and owners can be a part of the solution for the police department to apprehend upon them refilling. We saw, recently, last year, that they went over the town line or the city line and were fueling in other municipalities. So, we're so small, then we do something and it has an impact and they can go over to another municipality. But we haven't given up on that strategy.
And are you still crushing them?
We have not crushed since our last public crushing last year. So I think the colonel said there are 45 that are forfeited in queue, property of the city of Providence, and we've not done anything with them, but I can assure you they're not going to be back on the streets of Providence.
Maybe the colonel could speak to this. I know you can't talk about specific tactics, but have you gotten more aggressive? Do you plan to get more aggressive this year? I think it was a few months ago you met with some city council people and you suggested that after the Jamal Gonzalez case, people were kind of pulling back a little bit, perhaps a little hesitant to be that aggressive. Will that change this year?
So good question. And after some incidents around the country, including ours, I would not use the word more aggressive. What I would say is we've become more surgical in our approach. We're utilizing best practices that and we're mixing and matching what may have worked in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, in New York, in Atlanta, in Columbus, in Pittsburgh, and we've talked to all these entities. In fact, our team has put out internally platform that we utilize when we're talking about strategy and how we're going to deploy our resources. So no, not more aggressive, because we know that poses a greater risk to our own officers, and it poses a greater risk to those motorists who are already acting in a reckless, illegal manner. So I would say we become more surgical and intelligence-led, how we move in on a group, whether it's 6 or 36, how we deploy our resources to apprehend and capture 3 or 4.
And I would add, not just more, Chief, I would say not just more surgical, but more resources, right? More officer time.
Correct. And like I've addressed with many problems we have in this community, we find we have our greatest ability to have success when we direct resources at an issue. So, random patrol yields random results. If you're just out there riding around in a police car, a mob car, you'll get random results. But when we have good intelligence, good information, and we direct our patrols towards a certain area with good direction as to what we want that operation to look like, our results are better.
This may be for Mayor Elorza, but just wanted to ask if there is any sort of plan in the works on the city's end to designate a place for these people to ride legally. Is there any space in the city to even do that?
That's something that's a conversation that we began probably a couple of years ago. At this time, there's no active effort to find a space. The challenge of this illegal and reckless driving in our street is just such an urgent, pressing issue that's what we've prioritized, and that's what we're focused on addressing.
You guys good with ATV questions?
So what's different? What's going to be different this year than the past? I think you might have addressed that, but can you get a little more specific?
Yeah, so some of the some of what I mentioned, we really only started to do mid to late summer into the fall. And like everything else, we go to school on what success we had in deploying that. And now we knew, come the cold weather, things kind of shut down. That's one of the reasons why we're having this press conference, is to publicly educate those young men and sometimes young women in the community who are prone to ride these bikes in an illegal manner. So we'll be doing some things differently. We're not going to explain our strategies, but one is the element of surprise with some of these bikers. And we don't always know when they'll be out there, but they don't always know when we'll be out there. either. And so, to answer that question.
Oftentimes it happens weekends, late at night.
Right.
When a lot of the police are focused on downtown, and then you'll have a pack of 20, 30, 40 of them buzzing down Broadway streets in.
Sounds like you've seen them before, RJ.
Heard them. You're gonna target, will you have the staff and resources to be able to do that outside of the busy time on the weekends downtown?
So yes, and that's part of the element of surprise. It's not only during the busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights in the warmer weather, but we've seen it oftentimes noontime on a Monday, the first real nice warm day, where there's a pack, again, of a half dozen to 20 of them. So yes, we'll do both. We'll do on the late night, the weekend, when there's a lot of nightlife going on, and we'll also do during the daytime for a forecasted really warm weather day, where we would expect that there would be some of these illegal bikes out there. But we'll do both, and I think the element of surprise is important in capturing these bikes. And we saw our calls for service. One of the reasons why we know we were successful, we monitor our calls for service. And they were a certain number, the beginning, middle of the summer, and then once deploying this sort of different strategy, directed patrol, they were far significantly less. The end of last summer into the fall, which is a really good riding time, early fall, the volume is high, but the numbers were way down. So we know that it worked, and that's why we're trying to get ahead of it in the spring and do some of the same things, but also some tweak and do a little different.
Will you have enough staff, though? I mean, if there's a group of dozens and you have 2 officers or 3 officers, how do you deal with that?
That's how we strategize. I mean, look, we only have a finite number of resources. We don't have a unit assigned to doing this. But similar to, like our SRU unit. Many larger departments have a full-time SWAT team, like the LAPD and the NYPD. We have arguably one of the best special response unit teams, certainly in New England, if not further. And they're not a full-time SWAT team, but they're extremely skilled, they're well-trained with snipers, unbelievable team, but it's a mix and match. There's members of patrol from the day shift, the 3 to 11 shift, detectives, narcotics, intelligence. This is similar. So do we have like a full-time response dedicated to this? No, but we have a response, and it's typically many of the same officers who are involved in this task force. So they learn from experience, and it's like a ball team. You get better after game 1 to the 10th game to the 20th game because you know how we're all going to react and what we're going to do, the person next to us.